sa'yo, Alan. We also have Rosalia joining us for this call. And we also have Charmaine. We have a representative from DSWD.
Yan. Hi,
Region 2.
Charmaine. Yan. Okay. Ayan. Good afternoon. Ayan, for everyone again. Why don't you give us all a greeting in the chat and tell us where you're. Ayan, good afternoon from HRMO Linamon, si Stacy. Hi, good afternoon, Stacy. And hi, Maria. Hi from Tarlac. Ayan. Hello, Mahilita. Good afternoon from Cebu City. Ayan. Oh, we have another from DSWD. Hi, Priscilla.
We also have from GSIS Iligan City. Hi, Alan.
Ayan. Hi, Sil. Ayan, hi from Makati. Hello. Ayan, ang dami.
Si May Alma. She's working from home in Zambales.
Wow, very, very near me at the moment. Hi, Pauline. Ayan, I love the engagement from the audience so far, Gabby. Alam mo, maybe with this, no, we have a good number of people. I guess we can start to actually introduce ourselves. So, ayan, hi, good afternoon once again. So if you're very new to the webinars, it might be your first time seeing Gabby and I. But if you're not a first-time viewer, you will normally see Gabby and I as the moderators of our monthly free webinars. But we're doing something very differently today. Gabby and I will also be your speakers for today, given that we are good representations of Gen Z and millennials in the workplace. So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Luis Almazar, but you guys are free to call me Alma. Yan ang aking nickname. I am the Wellbeing Services Associate of Positive Workplaces. And joining me today is my wonderful co-host.
Thank you, Alma. I'm Gabby, and I'm the Learning and Development Associate of Positive Workplaces, and we are so happy to have you here.
Ayan, thank you so much for that, Gabby. And we're going to start our session always with our mission here in Positive Workplaces, which is that we co-create cultures that enhance the well-being of the Filipino workforce. Now, how indeed do we do that? We do that through what is called the positivity ripples. Ito ang strategy namin on how we create those positive cultures, that nation of positive organizations. And it, of course, starts from leading the self. That's every one of you guys joining our call today. You guys are great examples of people who want to become better leaders of their own well-being. And of course, what we hope to happen in each of our learning sessions is that you learn to become better leaders, and then you then start to influence others with what you've learned through these sessions. Because we all know you're all capable of sharing these learnings, no? And when you start to lead a lot of people, you can then influence cultures. And these cultures, some good examples that we like to put out there are the cultures of compassion, teamwork, team cohesion. These are just some of the many cultures that we like to promote. And once those good cultures are out there, it paves the way for positive workplaces here in the Philippines. One person at a time, one group at a time, or one company at a time. And that's how we try to make the ripples.
Yes, and pushing forward with our advocacy work. Diba, na-mention nga ni Alma na leading the self is very important to us. That is why we craft these monthly webinars so that you can be equipped with knowledge and skills on positive psychology and leadership, well-being, and of course, organizational development. And this May, we are discussing the key to XYZ, unlocking the secrets to leading a multi-generational team. So last Tuesday, we had Elijah Corpus, and she discussed bridging the generational gap, engagement strategies for a multi-generational workforce, where she mentioned how it's important to view the characteristics of each generation as their strengths so that we can work together and, really build that good multi-generational team. And this afternoon, Alma and I will be talking about keeping up with the trend, leading millennials and Gen Zs, and on Tuesday next week, we hope that you also get to join our Chief Wellbeing Officer and co-founder, Nikki Vergara, where she will be talking about digital tools. So alam naman natin, di ba, na right now, especially with the pandemic, we had to adjust a lot of what we do face-to-face to the virtual world. So we
Totoo.
want to do our part and, alam nyo, help you guys to develop that skill in using different digital tools. So we're gonna do Let's Get Digital, embracing digital tools in a multi-generational workforce.
Yeah, very exciting month of webinars. So before we start, we just have some reminders. No, Gabby, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so we hope that you have another device or be ready to go to another link because we are going to use Mentimeter this afternoon. And we hope that you have a pen and paper ready so that you can take notes of whatever we will be discussing.
And we also highly encourage engagement in the chat box. We love it when you guys chat and interact with us or the audience. Pero we just want to remind everyone to please be respectful in the chat. And next, for those who are waiting for an evaluation, an e-certificate at the end, we will be issuing an evaluation form that will be open for 30 minutes only. Additional reminders for that is please pakilagay na lang po ng full name and email address correctly. Make sure you don't use any other name, nickname, or pseudonym because the name you place in the form will be reflected on the certificate. And if you have not received this certificate, kindly wait at least 2 days before following up and sending an email to us since there might be a delay kasi maraming pumapasok na requests for certificates. So ayan, we very much appreciate your patience regarding this. Ayan. So ayan, so Gabby, we're about to start our webinar. Again, we're going to be discussing keeping up with the trend, which is all about leading millennials and Gen Zs in the best way possible by sharing our experiences and our learnings so far. So let's start this off.
So
Ayan.
we want to get a feel of the room, right, Alma?
Yes,
Siyempre, hindi lang kami yung magpapakilala.
tama yan.
Okay, so we're going to be releasing a poll and we want to know from which generation are our learners coming in this afternoon.
Yes. Actually, I think Gabby, if you could press the poll, do you see if you have an option to
Yeah,
start?
yeah.
Oh,
There.
ayan.
Okay, so we currently have 2 questions. So first, we want you to answer from what generation are you from? And do you think you work in a company or organization that is multi-generational?
Mm,
So syempre tayo, Alma, di ba, kita naman na multi-generational tayo in positive workplaces.
Indeed.
Not because di ba, we just not work with the employees. We have consultants which are older than us and carry that much wisdom.
And in our core team and the interns that we work with are very filled with Gen Zs and millennials. So ayan, just checking, Gabby. Is the poll currently online for everyone?
Yeah, it's still online. Let's just complete 1 whole minute for them to answer. But right now we have a lot of millennials in the room. They are 55%. We also have Gen Z. So Alma, our topic is really, really for these people.
Okay,
And we
okay.
also have some managers. We have the Gen X and some baby boomers.
Okay, okay. Buti naman we're getting a number. May nagkaroon ng onting error. Hindi ko makita yung poll, so I'm relying on you, Gabby, on the statistics. But it's great to hear that we at least have representatives from each generation.
Okay.
How about for our second question naman?
For our second question, there I'm sharing the results. Okay, so we have around 52% of Gen Y or millennials in this room. We also have 30% of Gen Zs. And then the rest, we have Gen X, baby boomers, and the Gen A. And then do you work in a company or organization that is multi-generational? Yes, 77%, Alma. There is more than one generation present in their organization. And we also have 22% who are currently not working.
Okay, okay. Yun nga ang inaasahan kong result sa ating poll kasi what a lot of people fail to see nowadays is almost all workplaces are multi-generational. It's very rare to see a workforce that has solely one generation. Siguro pwede mangyari yon for startups. If you're mostly Gen Z, that's a possibility. But in a lot or most companies nowadays, uh, the generations are so close apart that you're not already noticing that you're already in a multi-generational workforce. So my question for everyone that no one has to answer, just to think about it, is what is your company doing in order to accommodate your multi-generational workforce? That's something that I want to keep in mind for everyone. So ayon, Gabby, I'm gonna tell them our learning roadmap for today. For our why, we're gonna talk about why is it important to learn the characteristics of the current generations present in the workplace. What generations are this? We have Gen Z, Gen Y, or Millennials. We have Gen X, and we also have some baby boomers who are still in the workforce nowadays. For what naman, ang pag-uusapan natin is what do Gen Zs and Millennials need in order to flourish? What do I need, Gabby? What do you need in order to flourish? And lastly, for how do we co-create work environments that help millennials and Gen Zs flourish?
Yes, and we are going to start off with why. Okay, we need to answer why is it important to learn the characteristics of the current generations present in the workplace. So I want to pick off from what Elijah told us last week, diba? Na there is synergy in diversity. Na minsan feeling natin pag masyado tayong iba-iba, baka hindi tayo mag-workout kasi it will definitely lead to conflict, diba? Because my working style might be different from yours, the way you communicate might be different from yours. Pero once we recognize these differences, they're actually something that we can harness so that, diba, we can create that synergy in the workplace. And that is happening in our workplaces right now because never before have we seen na what we're seeing right now in the workplace na there are 5 generations present. Okay? So imagine niyo there are 5 generations bunched together and each generation brings its own unique strengths in the workplace. Diba? So now it's our responsibility as leader to tap into these strengths. Diba, Alma? However, that's not what we see. Parang most of the time, we still see na there are stereotypes present for each generation. Do you agree? Do you agree with that,
I,
Alma?
alam mo, I completely agree. I think nga Gen Zs get the most amount of stereotypes, especially since napakabago nila, no, in the field of work. So we have all these other generations already making assumptions and stereotypes on what kind of behavior they exhibit. So ayun, we actually want to ask the question for everyone in the room. You can grab that device we mentioned. You can scan this QR code, or you can simply click the link that our tech support CPJ is placing in the chat for easy access. We want to ask everyone, what are the stereotypes millennials and Gen Zs receive in the workplace? And don't worry, very psychologically safe ang program that we use. So no worry, we will not be able to trace back who sent the answers. So ilabas nyo na dyan, be honest. What are stereotypes that you've heard? Ayan,
So
Gabby.
while we're waiting, Alma,
Mm.
siguro share ko lang, sa generation namin, ang palaging sinasabi is that we're entitled. Na parang just upon entering the workplace, parang we already try to find ano ba yung perks na pwede kong makuha or like ano ba yung development na pwede kong makuha dito. Which is, I think, when we entered the workplace, was very new for the people already in the workplace. What about you?
For me naman, in my generation, very easily thrown around na it's so hard to satisfy us. Palipat-lipat, we keep changing our minds. No? So some people might be agreeing with this in the chat. Let me know if you can't access on Menti. You can also just type your answers in the chat. But ayan. Gabi, tamang-tama nga ang
Diba?
nahanap ko. Let's draw some of these, no? Okay, what are you seeing there? Of course, I'm seeing the big orange entitled. We're seeing
Yeah.
emotional. We're seeing lazy. Nako, I can relate. Parang natatamaan ata ako. Ayan, what are
But
other
we're
ones that
passionate.
you want to point out?
So we can also see that they're emotional. We are, parang ang description nga sa atin is tayo yung age of anxiety.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I can also see inexperience, pero meron ding competitive.
Mm-mm.
Glaring, ang lazy, and stubborn.
Ayan, nakita ko na. Palipat-lipat, ningaskugon, picky, observant. I actually want to ask you, Gabby, if you see anything, if you see a positive stereotype anywhere here. Oo nga eh. I see some brats spoiled,
Oo
too
nga,
many.
no, parang it's difficult to find.
Yes.
Meron pa addicted to technology.
Gabi, ayan, in the right, bago natin mawala, meron dyan, too many needs. Nakikita mo sa kanan. We're really
Yeah.
gonna talk about this later on. Like, ano ba tong needs na to that people are talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, ayan.
Okay, so thank you for sharing this with us. And we can totally relate because it's also what Alma and I hear from other people. Okay, so wag kayong mag-alala. We're all in this together.
Mhm.
So these words that you're seeing collectively, they are what we call stereotypes. Okay, so in this day and age, we hold inaccurate beliefs about our age. Okay, this doesn't necessarily parang capture the full characteristic of what it is to be a Gen Y or a Gen Z. Pero ito yung kadalasang label na nakukuha natin from other people. So these are beliefs other people have about our age group. Ngayon naman, baligtarin natin yung question, Alma. Kung kanina, ito yung way or ito yung mga words that they use to label us, punta naman tayo dun sa next Menti question natin.
Yes.
Okay,
Our next
go ahead.
question naman is, how do you think individuals from other generations in the workplace describe you? And I
Okay,
think we also, yeah.
Parang we hold beliefs naman. Ano yung mga beliefs nyo na parang feeling ko ito yung iniisip sa akin ng boss ko or something? 'Di ba? So parang ako, dati nasabihan na ako na, hindi ako nasabihan, parang feeling ko minsan, I talk too much, I have a lot of opinions, na parang given my position, like siguro entry level, kaka-start ko palang mag-work noon, parang ang dami ko masyadong opinion or madami ako masyadong suggestions that I was giving out to the project that you were handling. So what about you, Alma? What beliefs do you have na iniisip mo na parang ito yung iniisip sa akin nung generation na to nakatrabaho ko?
I think nakarelate ako masyado sa too many needs, but I think I saw something there, like the need for communication, or medyo pushy ako when it comes to communication, because in a prior work experience that I had, I would tell my boss, I cannot attend this meeting because very short notice. And then I voiced out to my supervisor that I need a bit of earlier confirmation that there will be a meeting at this time. Hindi ako ganun ka spontaneous. And I was thrown back the idea na, oh, hindi dapat ganyan yun. You should be ready to meet at a moment's notice. And then I just thought at the time, like, oh, that's pretty difficult to ask for given the circumstances. So feel ko ang nakita niya sa akin nun is, ay baka demanding ako sa time and communication. So I sort of felt bad pa nga for that suggestion I gave. Let's see what other people think, Gabby.
Okay. Let's see. So the answers are slowly coming in. So may iba sinabi nila na they perceive or they have beliefs na other people in their workplace think that they're naughty. They have too many commentaries. Ayan, they are strict,
idealistic, and helpful. Okay. It's a good mix. Okay.
yeah. Meron din, we are outspoken and assertive.
Totoo yan, Gabi. I think maraming people older na companies, nababastos sila on how assertive some of these younger generations can be, even though although I can't speak for everyone, although there's a possibility that they're not trying to be offensive. That's just kung paano sila nilaki, or ayan, bida-bida. Ideas not grounded in reality. Alam mo, I hear this all the time. We dream too much. We aim too high. Parang hindi pa daw tayo natatamaan ng kahirapan. Like that's a lot of the things that I hear.
Yeah, same also. Ayan, they see me as aspirant and look as idealistic. So nakikita ko glaring talaga na parang our generation we also have beliefs na other people think na we are too idealistic, we speak too much,
Mhm.
parang we hold too many opinions for our own good. Meron din, ito parang this is different, na we are easy to manipulate.
Mm.
Na we hold the belief na we are easy to manipulate.
But what I do like is we have some positive ones here, like optimistic with a big heart. I love that nagkaroon pa rin ng mga positive answers from this.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
so
so
we can.
we can go back to our slides and
I'd
we
like to
can go.
introduce. Mm-mm.
Okay, so what we just discussed, yung mga sinabi nyo, yung mga belief ng ibang tao about ourselves based on our age group is what we call the meta stereotypes. So to explain this further, gusto kong pumunta ka dun sa example, Alma. Okay, so I think a lot of people will be able to relate because ito yung mga nakita nating answers sa Menti. So a stereotype about our generation is that we are too idealistic. Okay, so parang we hold certain standards and these are standards na are non-negotiable for us. Or as much as possible, we try to push for them. Pero at the same time, a meta-stereotype that I hold na parang feeling ko minsan or what I usually think how other generations perceive me or us is that they think that I am too outspoken and idealistic. So uh, what's wrong with these statements? So imaginein mo na may isang sabihin natin Generation X or a boomer who would say na okay, these millennials are too idealistic. The person holding that stereotype can, di ba, when working with a millennial, can withhold projects or tasks or altogether withhold working with a millennial just because naiisip nila na millennials may be hard to work with or ang dami natin masyadong suggestions, wala tayong matatapos. Di ba? So, yun yung downside niya when we have or hold too closely to this inaccurate belief or this stereotype.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, ilimbawa ako as a millennial, and if I hold that meta-stereotype, the other people in the workplace, na iniisip ko na yan yung iniisip ng ibang tao. So, ang pwede ko namang gawin is I can just withdraw. 'Di ba? I will not give comments and suggestions para hindi ako pag-isipan ng ganon. I will not participate or engage in the work that I do. Which is also a downside for the team I am working with, di ba, Alma? Kasi
Yeah.
we hold very fresh ideas na the team or the company also need.
Mm-mm. Yeah, so ako nga, like from the way I'm getting it, stereotypes of like give way to negative perceptions and interactions, and meta stereotypes on the other hand can be very limiting for a person. No, like that's how I see it really negatively affecting people in the workplace. Mm-mm.
Yes, and when that happens, ito yung impact ng inaccurate beliefs natin na yan. It challenges the workplace collaboration. And it also leads to a decrease in performance of the people. And as sinabi ko nga kanina, di ba, pwedeng i-avoid na nila yung task completely. Di ba? Parang to avoid conflict, hindi na lang ako magsasalita. So, that's something detrimental about the inaccurate beliefs that we have.
Yes.
And what we need now, knowing that now that we are aware that we have these inaccurate beliefs, we need a paradigm shift. Okay? So now that we are aware of them, we can call them out whenever we see these stereotypes and meta-stereotypes so that, di ba, when we bring it into awareness, we know how to manage them and what to do with them. Pero at the same time, this also requires us to, alam mo yung when mali na yung grado ng salamin mo and the things you see blurred na, hindi na siya super accurate. So that's what we need to do. We need to change our lenses and use the needs and strength or see the needs and strengths of each of those generations, di ba? So that we can get to know them at a deeper level and alam mo yun, get to be more in touch with their needs. And we can do that through what we call empathy.
Yes, and it's not an easy task to do, no, like to ask someone to suddenly change their perspective, to ask someone to suddenly be more understanding, but it's actually these little steps that can really pave the way for what we're looking for, no, Gabby?
Yes.
We actually just wanted to add more context to our why. Why is it important that we do this? Because looking into the future, in just a couple more years, millennials and Gen Zs will comprise most of the workforce. Like they will, I think, very close na sila to the majority of people who are in the field as of this moment. Another context point I want to put, like, why not take this opportunity to make more intentional steps to build that ideal environment, since this environment that a lot of very amazing, very successful baby boomers and Gen X, they spent years creating these big companies, these very successful companies. Now that they're gonna pass it on to the next generation, why not, on your way out, try to find a way to make that environment great for those who will follow in your great footsteps. That's that opportunity that we want to present to many of our future leaders, uh, like the opportunity that we want them to take. And lastly, like, and we want to take we want them to take this opportunity to recognize Gen Zs and millennials untapped potential. Because I don't know if it's just me as an optimist, but underneath all those stereotypes, I know for sure that once or twice in your life, you've noticed a spark of brilliance in these younger generations at work. You might have noticed it. You might have even seen yourself a little bit in the people that the younger generations that you work with in work. And we want you, everyone here, to sana be open to that potential that we can
Yeah.
do to succeed. And lastly, we asked this question. This ends our why. No, we mentioned, why is it important to learn the characteristics of the current generations present in the workplace? And we really mean learn na. Ang gusto natin mangyari dito, the learning is actually learning what it is their needs are, not the stereotypes, not the inaccurate beliefs, but really learning what and how the mind of a Gen Z and a millennial works. And after learning, only then can you understand, no? Using that empathy diagram that Gabby gave. You try to put yourself in their shoes. Ano ba yung pinagdadaanan nila? And with that, we can achieve harmony, a harmonious multi-generational workforce, a workforce where each generation is able to receive the needs that they are putting forward, and a generation where everyone can be engaged and can work together to achieve really good efficiency. Because what we should all strive for is a workforce that is engaged, productive, and harmonious. Ayan. So that caps off our why.
Yes, and I agree with you on that, Alma, diba? I think a lot of our attendees here are wanting to have that ideal workplace. Kaya they are also equipping themselves. So katulad nga ng sinabi ni Evan dito sa comment section, sa chat box natin, na yun nga, we get tagged based on our age and other generational attributes, and that hinders us from parang tapping that potential. So I hope na as we go through the what and the how, Evan, you will learn more about parang how we can break those stereotypes one by one. So
Yeah.
now we are going to answer, what do Gen Zs and millennials need in order to flourish? So we'd like you to go back to Menti again. And feeling ko maraming sasagot dito kasi 'di ba parang right now we are more aware of our needs. Hindi na siya katulad before na, okay, I just need to go to school, I just need to finish school para magkaroon ako ng trabaho. Pero right now, we mas na-elaborate na yung language natin for, okay, I need well-being, I need
need time off. I need break
yan, I need a
from this time to this
vacation, di
time.
ba?
Marami talagang needs. You're absolutely right na now more than ever, our needs are being placed in front of us because we are going through a very tough time. We want to ask everyone. If you were, let's say you're not, you're still a student, you can place yourself a little bit in the future. What do you think you would need in order to flourish in your workplace? And if you're already someone who's working, what are the things that are happening in your workplace right now that are allowing you to flourish even more? Ayan, Gabby.
Yeah, you're now seeing answers. And I'd like to just share na if you're having internet connectivities, because we saw na there are a lot of internet providers that are having their upgrades this afternoon, you can also use the chat box and Alma and I are going to read your answers as well. So we have good mentorship. Ako, hinahanap ko rin to personally in the workplace. Kasi diba, it's one of the easiest way to talaga upgrade your skill. Yun yung when you learn from an expert. What about you, Alma? Ano yung nakikita mo sa mentee natin this afternoon?
Like I mentioned earlier, ako, all I need is clear-cut communication. Ayan, smack dab, communication talaga for me. Kasi for me, all I need is a supervisor that can tell me what I need to improve on, what he or she needs from me. Communication is such a good pathway to so many different things. It can be a pathway to growth. It can be a pathway to coming up with the best solutions and compromises. That's what's really important for me.
Yeah.
I like this. I need break to take care of my health. Alam mo, that's hard to come by in a lot of companies nowadays. Na. So a lot of
Yeah.
companies, very important sa kanila to reach their goals, their numbers, to be able to make a profit. So much that maraming taong nababaliwala na yung mga mental health nila, what they need just to function in the bare minimum. And it saddens my heart seeing situations like this.
And picking off from what you just shared, Alma, gusto ko rin yung sinabi nito na work-life balance and stop glorifying overworking. Kasi minsan naman we put in the hours that we are required to put in. Pero minsan nakikita yun in a bad light kasi may mga taong gino-glorify din yung overworking in the system, which is also not good, 'di ba? So parang ito yung isang well-being routine na kailangan nating i-incorporate in our system. So, thank you for the person who shared this with us.
Yes.
Ayan.
And thank you so much for everyone that's really, and we even have a personal answer. I need jowa to make me happy and love me. Ayan, intindi rin naman yan. Sometimes your relationships outside of work can also improve your mindset. So gets namin yan. Ayan.
Yes.
Thank you everyone for
Support system.
sharing.
Ang dami. I need
Tama.
more guidance from supervisor as at times I'm able to do it on my own.
Yes,
Yan. So, Alma, what I love about this is it is consistent with the research that you've been, diba, reading about the past few days on
yes,
this
ayan.
topic. So, we
Yes,
can go back to our slide. Yeah.
And that research that we're about to show right now.
So, based on the research that we read the past days, makikita natin na one thing common about Generation Y and Generation Z is that ang needs nila ay ano yung unang-una, Alma? We
Purpose.
are purpose-driven. So, we can see na when we engage in an activity, hindi lang siya yung basta, ay dahil gusto ko to. Usually, there's a deeper meaning behind what we do. And we don't stop na, okay, dapat parang personal fulfillment lang siya. Hindi. Parang we want to know if the work that we do affects parang, halimbawa, our company's targets. O kaya the company's targets that we do affects culture or society in general. Diba? So that's how we view it for Generation Y or for Millennials. And nakita din natin, a lot of you were saying personal development. So we Millennials, we like working in challenging environments where we will be able to learn skills more quickly. Kaya kailangan natin ng mentor, kaya kailangan natin ng coach because we want to receive the information, the skill, and the knowledge that they have, and at the same time, the feedback that they can provide us given the work that we do.
And I think Gen Zs could agree with this as well.
Yeah, di ba? So, ang dami ring similarities. And nandoon din tayo na we focus on strength development. And then last, I think we also saw a lot of this, yung tinatawag nating work-life integration. So in one of the studies I read, ang title niya ay Millennials or the Filipino Millennials. We're characterized as people or as individuals who are very fun-loving. Hindi tayo pumapayag na all work lang and no play. So as much as possible, we try to integrate our life and our work together. So work means hindi lang siya for the passion or for the purpose that we have, pero we want na what we get from work so that we can have a lifestyle that we want.
Yes, ayan. So I know that thanks for that, Gabby. So Gabby just mentioned the three main findings that we wanted to present on what Gen Y or millennials really need in order to flourish in the workplace. And I'm going to talk about naman what Gen Z requires. So our number one, this is why purpose driven is also nasa gitna, tas nasa taas, is because one of the top one things that Gen Zs want also is also in relation to purpose. After doing some research, my main um, resource on this was from our last speaker, Elijah Corpus. She has a very wonderful study that she put out. It's called The Future of Work. She did an assessment on millennials and Gen Zs and found that for them, that one of the top three things that they look for is a very meaningful job that provides a positive impact on society. Kaya talaga pumapasok dito yung nakita natin sa stereotypes na they really aim high. They're so um they dream so much. They want this and that to happen. Like it's unrealistic. Um that's where it's really reflected that a lot of Gen Zs want to engage in careers that they feel will have a positive impact on the world. And that's not a bad thing. That's not something that you'd want to quash if a Gen Z would believe in this. Parang it's up to us to really respect what they want to make out for this world. Next naman, for Gen Z also, we're gonna talk about technology. We know this, no? Alam na natin yung lahat ng mga Gen Z, millennials ngayon, with ang dami nilang pauso, ang dami nilang ginagamit na apps, phones, technology, and we always get this same thing from the older people in the generation. They're very, very resistant to change, especially if these programs and applications are not very user friendly. Kasi and we have to understand this because hindi naman sila lumaki na that technology was present. So it's really indeed difficult for them to embrace these new age things. But in our findings for how much Gen Z people need technology, it's all about ease of use. It's all about finding these things that we find efficient using project management tools, using tools that can beautify our presentations. All these new age things um, are a lot more pleasant to the eye. It makes our lives easier, no? So actually, one of the things that we want to put forward is like hopefully that our millennials and Gen Zs in the workplace are given an avenue to to show or even provide learning sessions for everyone how to use certain tools, because that's a good way to offer that learnings to the people who don't know how to use it. And alam mo, Gabi, mapapag-usapan natin yan next Tuesday in Nikki's talk. Let's Get Digital, on how digital tools can be really used to engage and connect more with the multi-generational workforce. So you guys should stay tuned for that one. Lastly, wellness initiatives. Now, I think this doesn't just go for Gen Y, Gen Z. I think this goes for multi-generation. We all need wellness initiatives nowadays. What kind of wellness initiatives am I talking about? Kahit yung simpleng mental health measures in place, um, giving us access to hotlines or networks wherein we can ask for mental health, um, opportunities for non-work, pwedeng mga sports fest or just lunch outs with your team. But one other thing that I wanted to put out there is well-being initiatives does not strictly have to come from HR. Porket HR sila lang bahala sa well-being. That's actually not true. Sometimes well-being or the control over a person's well-being can be up to your supervisor or your boss. They can contribute to your well-being. Our example for this, Gabby, a nice example for this is our bosses, John and Nikki. We start off the week by checking what our tasks are and judging from how well we are feeling, if we have a lot on our plate, if we're not doing too well, they have the power to bump off very low priority tasks to give us enough time to breathe. Now, I know that not all companies have the privilege or time to do this, but it's just even taking the small step of your supervisor asking you how you are doing. Kamusta ka naman? What help or support can I give you? Or if you can't offer help and support, even just giving as much words of motivation is an example of a very small well-being initiative that you can do for your team members, or it can even be the other way around. You could offer well-being to your supervisor as well. So ayun, these are the things that Gen Zs and millennials find really important when it comes to flourishing with work. And ayan, Gabby, we have our final words on yung what natin, no?
Yes. So I'd just like to jump off from what you said, Alma, diba? Sa well-being initiatives, parang millennials naman, in our case, na we also push for well-being initiatives. Pero ang tendency namin, hindi namin sasabihin dun sa mga boss namin. Parang we'll just talk about it among ourselves, pero we never parang push it to the higher ups. Unless may isang mag-volunteer na, okay, sige, ako magsasabi kay ma'am or kay sir na kailangan natin ng ganito. But just the same, we also care. Parang we talk about it in our teams, and then alam mo yun, we try to push and try to help out each other. So seeing that there are very madaming similarities, diba? We still have our own, it's important to note na we have our own important, unique characteristics that make us stand out. So when we view the needs of each generation, hindi pa rin siya pwedeng fair na ilump together. So what we want is you really need to know the person so that you can parang assess what that person needs as well.
Yes, and that's actually very related to what Elijah mentioned last week, no? Yes, there are these generational stereotypes, but why would you let a single stereotype define your interactions with the person? Beneath all those true or untrue stereotypes, there lies a person still, that regardless of what age, what nationality they are their own person. So take that step to get to know that person talaga.
Yes, and I think we're now ready to go to our how part, Alma.
Yes,
so
ayan.
how?
Yan, how, no? How do we co-create work environments that help millennials and Gen Zs flourish? So, what Gabby and I came up with is a table of very quick strategies and activities that everyone here could use that will really help create that ideal environment that we've been talking about. So, ayan. So, for pre-hiring strategies, it's realigning what it is that you do in terms of hiring. So to make sure that you get the right people. For engagement, we have these 4 that we're going to go on later on. And for offboarding, it's going to be maintaining connections. So to start with pre-hiring, there might be some people who are HR here in the call. Maybe there's already something that you do. But the number one thing you could really do is realigning hiring strategies. So it's checking for alignment of goals and values. So the questions that you use in an interview, nag-iiba na yan. It's already very different to what the questions were before. You have questions coming in like, do your goals and values align with that of our company? And of course, that would require an applicant to have to know ano nga ba yung goals and values of the company. And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of yung mga masisipag na Gen Z and millennial, they really take that extra mile before they go on to an interview with the company. Na research na nila siguro yun na okay, gusto ko yung company nito because mukhang they're very filled with Gen Zs and millennials, and then they're very caring. Yun yung gusto kong values yun yung gusto kong values of a company na sasalihan ko. Next naman, another hiring strategy is to be transparent about company culture on job posting ads. So this is one way that a company can screen better. Kasi yung hiring strategies na yun, this benefits both the applicant and the company. For the applicant, this helps them because when you find that you're not realigned on goals and values, you're saving that person. Sasabihin ko sa'yo, I don't think you're the right fit for this company. And the applicant shouldn't take that as a bad thing. That can be a company telling you, I think you're looking for a company that's better and we cannot provide those needs for you. And on your end also, at least hindi ka mag-on board ng tao na alam mo will not stay long because hindi nga magka-match yung goals and values nyo. And you can take that step a bit further by being transparent about it on job posting ads. Here's an example that we like to use. So this was the job ad that was posted na nakita ni Miss Gabby Liamson, who's my co-host. This is what she saw that made her apply for Positive Workplace. So it's very simple, no? We're just looking for the title of the job, Learning and Development Associate. Kung ano nga ba yung mga tasks ng gagawin ng L&D Associate. And then here, who lights up when they simplify complex information, cheme-cheme, brainstorm, and then in this last bullet point, nakita nun, finish collaborative projects with equally sabaw peers. Gabi, ano yung naramdaman mo when you saw this ad?
I felt validated. Kasi, di ba, parang, you know na you're not always at the top of your game, but when you are also with people who acknowledge that, parang yung culture of help is very present in the organization. Na alam mo na, we are always open to helping one another so that we can finish or we can reach our targets. Which we can see naman, di ba, Alma, ever since we both started working in Positive Workplaces.
Yes, and diba? So from this ad, no, you can see, oy, one, medyo understanding tong company na to because they acknowledge the fact that there are behaviors or habits na not the best for work, but then we're human. We're real, pwede mangyari yan. And baka nakita rin ni Gabi na, uy, gumagamit sila ng words like sabaw on a job posting ad. For sure, I'm joining a company of young minds, open to a lot of people. So see, these are already things that you can do just from the get-go by being transparent about your company culture. So ayun, that's one thing that you could do as pre-hiring strategy. Ayan. How about this one, Gabi?
So next, I think it's very much related to what Katrina said in our chat box. So sabi, may mga nire-refer daw minsan sa kanila, sila yung makahire ng company, pero habang tumatagal, doon nila madidiscover na wala namang skills. Okay? So I think it will really come in handy na, di ba we saw na millennials are very invested or they recognize the need for personal development. That is why one of the things that we can do or we can co-create in the workplace is to lead with strengths in mind. So how do we do this? So first, we can be intentional about knowing the strengths of your team. Okay? So can you go to the next slide lang saglit, Alma? So one of the things I love about what we do is that dito sa one of our best practices is that dun sa onboarding pa lang namin, we are already asked to parang identify what skill sets that we have and parang that's further accompanied by assessment tools, di ba Alma? So we talk the Gallup strengths, the VIA character strengths, so we can further name the different strengths that we have. And now that we are more aware or more familiar with them, ang next step na ginagawa sa amin is that we are assigned tasks that are aligned with our strengths. So kaya napunta sa amin ni Alma yung webinar creation and yung webinar facilitation is because one of our top strengths is ideation. So we work with ideas, we know how to put them together, we see the connection between ideas. And that's why we come up with itong mga tinuturo namin sa inyo ngayon. And Alma, ano pa yung ibang strengths? Bakit ito ang na-assign sa'yo as one of your projects?
Well, for me, I think our bosses, John and Nikki, were able to find that Gabby and I also love or can handle talking in front of a crowd. For me, it very much energizes me. I feel like I'm in my element. So even though my job as well-being services associate is related more on sales, I find myself doing projects like this because John really sees that I enjoy things like this. Nikki sees that, through this pathway that we're offering Alma, it can also be good for him, no? He's putting himself out there, exposure. So they didn't just look at my strengths, they also gave me the opportunities where I can use these strengths. And that's a really amazing thing that you could do if you're a leader of a company.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Alma. So, di ba, ang pinakamaganda and what we want to highlight here is we have to help them be aware and to name their strengths. Because similar lang to emotions, di ba? The first step in managing our emotions is to actually name them. So same goes with our strengths. To be able to parang know what we need, di ba? Alam mo, if we want to develop a skill, ano bang strengths yung kailangan kong gamitin? So, kailangan nating maname yung different strengths na yun so that we can be able to work on them more so that they become, di ba? From talent, they become our strength.
Yes.
Okay?
And there's a lot of strengths assessments out there that are free to take. So if you guys have free time, you guys should take the VIA strength assessment. It's free, and you can learn a lot more about yourself just by taking that test. So ayan.
Yes.
Yeah, this next one naman you wanted to talk about another way to make sure that your people are engaged is by offering them what is called individual coaching consultations. So what this is we have this system in positive workplaces, and I'm aware that this is also a thing that many other companies do. They offer one-on-one consultations between the supervisor and the person under them, or it can even be a person and then another person on your team. They offer one-on-one consultations because it gives that team member an avenue to ask for guidance. Sometimes people really want to ask for help, but the culture of the company makes it feel like it's so hard to ask for help. So if your company has something like this in place, individual consultations, it normalizes na kailangan ko ng tulong, I need to ask someone for it. It's also a culture thing, no? Your company has to be open to the idea that not everyone will know everything. Some people have to be guided, some people have to be mentored. And yun, in relation to mentor, another thing that ICs can do is you get feedback on your work, and it enhances the mentoring relationship that you have with your supervisor. And yun nga, baka mas maging closer pa kayo through those individual consultations. So yeah, this is a pretty big system to adopt, but I will definitely say from experience, this is a very positive thing to have. And
Yes.
yun, in line with that na rin, no, Gabby, we have individual development plans. Now, this is sort of different. To give a long story short on what this is, um, when you meet with your boss or your supervisor, they they have um, they have some form of control over your growth, on how much growth they can give you. Your supervisors, your mentors can be a pathway to your goals and objectives. So some companies even go so far as to do individual development plans for some of their employees. And what that is you and your supervisor and boss can co-create pathways that would help you reach your goals and aspirations. An example for me was when I joined this company, I was not a business graduate, and I told my boss that I wanted to learn more about business. And what that happened was when I got hired for my job, I had individual consultations with him, mentoring sessions on him teaching me ins and outs of business sales, and I was able to build my repertoire. So he set me on that individual development plan. So companies that have this in place are also great companies because they offer a lot of growth opportunities for their people. And yeah, how about you, Gabby?
Yes, and next we have well-being activities. So nasimulan mo na to kanina na millennials and Gen Zs are very big on well-being initiatives, and we're very happy na we're coming in the workplace at a time when the mental health law was already signed into law, di ba? And ngayon, even the technical working groups of the Department of Health, they are all, and even the Department of Labor and Employment, they're also trying to find mechanisms on how are we going to implement these programs inside the company. So what we want to emphasize here, or at least what has worked for our company, now we would also like to share with you, is to include well-being activities in your work routines.
Mm-mm.
So, di ba parang minsan, ang ginagawa kasi natin, pag sinabi natin well-being, baka may separate activity lang kami para dyan. So, it kind
My
of adds up to
seminar.
the load. Oo, di ba? Umattend kayo ng seminar. It adds up to the load of the employees instead na malift niya yung load from him or her, di ba? So what we, Alma and I, used as an example for this is nabanggit na nga rin niya kanina is this is how Nikki and John checks Diba? Parang this is one of the routines we have every Monday and every Friday. So one of the things we have is what we call the task monitoring. So we just have a brief rundown of all the tasks that we have to do for the week or what we have in the coming week. And then we put in the estimated timer hours that we need, and then the details, and then what's the status of that certain activity. So what we love about this practice is that we do constant check-ins. So they know if we're lagging behind. And if we're lagging behind, they will ask us what support we need so that we will be able to catch up with the targets that we have. Diba, Alma? So we've seen that
Yes.
a lot since we both started in
Mm.
PW. So that's one of the things or one of the routines na you can incorporate in the workplace so that you'd know how to support your teammates as well. And the other one is that you have to maximize opportunities to interact with coworkers outside of work. Okay? So alam ko there are also people, we recognize na may people na ayoko, basta pag work lang, hindi ko kayo gustong kasama sa labas. Pero what we're also seeing is that it doesn't even have to be a relationship, 'di ba, Alma?
Mm.
Parang building these connections, 'di ba? Parang having different activities where you and your coworkers can engage in different activities. Halimbawa, ito, nag-sports kami after work. O kaya you have your regular R&R. So sabihin nyo, meron kayong strategic plan coming up. So pwede kayong magsingit ng R&R doon. And for example, during the recent elections, di ba? I think this is one good example of how in tune our leaders are dun sa needs of their people, was that they know na a lot of us were feeling different things during the election. So one of the things they prepared for us is nagkaroon kami ng beer it session. So anong tawag natin doon? PW? Karaoke. So,
Karaoke.
so yun yung ginawa namin to de-stress after what happened during the elections. So when we do those things, we forge stronger connections. Take note how we use the word connections and not relationships. Kasi pag sinabi natin relationships, that involves a deeper, ano pa eh, di ba? A deeper level or another context. So we just want that strong connection in work, which is very good for well-being as research shows. And of course, it helps us build our teams up.
Yes, ayun. Yan. And this is our last strategy, no?
And our last strategy. So Alma and I really made it intentional that we go through the employee life cycle as we design these how practical points for you. Kasi syempre, hindi, di ba, sinabi nga natin na nag-iiba-iba ang needs ng isang tao in any given point of time. So there will always come a time that your employees will leave. So what do we do when they leave? So one of the best practices we have in PW is what we, parang term lang kanina, na we maintain connections with them. So during the exit interview, we ask for feedback, and at the same time, we also ask the question that would help us be open to what support we can give as leaders as they move towards their next goals. And what we have after that is that we maintain the network we have with previous employees, previous interns. So as you can see dun sa next slide natin, di ba? Ito yung PW Alumni Network. So some of them, we tap each other for different projects. We tap each other. Kung halimbawa may consultancy bigla na kailangan si PW, we also tap the people we've worked with before. So which is very good practice. Kasi diba, it doesn't, parang as a leader, our role with other people doesn't stop when they don't work for us anymore. Diba? As mentors, we want to continue that relationship even beyond the time we have worked together.
Yeah, that's actually right. Because I think people can look at this and ask, no, okay, if they're leaving, if they're quitting, why do we still need to maintain connections with them? Actually, that's an example of you. You're jumping the gun. Like, don't burn the bridge, because with that connection you've made, you can really make so much more out of it. Now, I know it depends on the industry or what kind of job you're applying for, but then solely just maintaining that connection will never be will never be a bad thing, because you can tap onto that person sometime in the future. If you've developed some form of mentorship, relationship, that person will come back to you because marami siyang natutunan sa'yo. And just having that connection is also good for you in the long run. So ayan, no. So that's what we talked about in terms of strategies. So again, Gabby mentioned that we're really going through the entire employee life cycle. You can already do some pre-hiring strategies by realigning, and while they are already employees in the company, you can try to lead with strengths in mind. You can introduce the idea of ICs, or individual consultations, and IDPs, which is individual development plans, to your company to see if they're open to it. And lastly, di naman mawawala how important well-being activities are for engagement. And very important now, even after they leave work or they quit their job, you can still maintain that connection. And from the data that you gathered, you can improve your existing system for your company. Ayan. And so, and Gabby, I guess let's just summarize, no? Like what we were able to talk about today.
Yes, Alma. So going back to our learning roadmap, we were able to answer why is it important to learn the characteristics of the current generation present in the workplace, where we said that the generational differences are really not that great, but what hinders us from knowing the characteristics are the stereotypes and meta
Yeah.
stereotypes, or the inaccurate beliefs that we have about each other.
Yes. And
And
then
then,
also to add to that, why, like why is it important? Because once we are able to throw away those stereotypes and really get to know what the needs and how to activate the strengths of each generation, Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen X, only then can we create that harmony, that productivity, and that efficiency that we need in all of our workforces.
yes, and then we answered what, 'di ba? What do Gen Zs and millennials need in order to flourish? Na despite the similarities, we can't just lump them in together because we have to see the person. And lastly, we discussed how.
Yeah, like how do we co-create work environments that help millennials and Gen Zs flourish? So we came across all those strategies. I hope now wherever and whenever it's applicable for the kind of companies and organizations that you all are from, that you can put that forward, especially since these are working strategies that can really help create that feeling of a good multi-generational workforce. So ayon. Thank you everyone for participating in our small talk. What we talked about today was essentially keeping up with the trend. How do we lead these millennials and Gen Zs? And
Hmm.
what we're gonna do next is we're gonna open ourselves to a Q&A. If anyone has any questions, I would actually want to ask you, Gabby, if you could be the one to flash our pigeonhole for everyone.
Yes.
So, ayan. So for
Yes,
everyone,
sure thing, Alma.
yes, okay. Ayan. So ayan, thank you, Gabby. So, yan, Gabby is flashing the QR code. So, yan, if you have your devices, very easily, pwede nyo lang iscan yan with your QR code reader. Or you can send in the link that our tech support page has sent in the chat once again. So, yan, you can very easily click that link. And again, don't worry, you have a choice to send your questions psychologically safe. Hindi kami, we're not asking for any names. Pwede yung
Yeah.
anonymous. But if you want to put your name, please feel free to do so.
Yes, so while we're waiting, Alma, we have a chat here from a learner na, well, very much frustrated na, I think we recognize this naman, di ba, na the ones supported in the office, sila yung napopromote as supervisors, pero they are not as skilled. Pero ang thing kasi is, mas malapit sila dun sa appointing person.
And alam mo, Gabby, what I can say to that is these are things that exist within some companies. These are things that exist within our culture. Dito sa Pilipinas, napakalakas ng yung sense of family or closeness to people na minsan
Mhm.
tinatalo niya pa yung actual skill on um how fit a person is for the job. So I think one way you can just try to go about this is to keep trying your best in any way. And then if you can also try your hand at talking to your boss, developing a relationship with them so that they see that you're willing to develop that relationship, but also have the strengths to back up what you want to pursue. So ayun. Ayan, Gabby, we have some
Yeah.
questions flying in already. So meron rin tayong voting system dito. If you don't want to ask any question, although you see a question here that you want to be answered, you can also vote for it as well. But I guess, Gabby, we can start.
Okay. Do you want to go with the first question that entered? So, what are
Ayan.
your thoughts on applying the activities and engagement that you have shared in an education institution? For example, a guidance and counseling program for elementary students.
Okay. Well, my answer for this is what's really nice about the education system generally is uh, that's already some of those systems are already in place, which is why kaya nga may job na guidance counselor already, no? They're the ones who are sort of in charge of doing individual consultations that will check up on how a child is doing, what their what where they need help. That mirrors what we were asking for an individual consultation. For the IDP, you could say that the entire school is one big individual development plan, because their idea is that they want to grow these children to become very fantastic men and women. But these the systems we mentioned earlier, not all of them exist. You're actually very like you would be we're welcome for you to try these programs in an educational institution, because some of them are very much applicable still, and there can be some learnings that can be gotten there pa rin talaga. So ayun, Gabby, how about you?
Yes, adding to what you just said, Alma, I think one of the things that they can really adopt in the schools is yung starting with the strengths. So, parang hindi kasi lahat ng schools oriented to teaching people or to teaching their students na, okay, we have an actual dictionary of strengths na we can name. 'Di ba parang pag nasa school ka, ang magagaling lang yung mga matataas yung IQ, yung mga kuha ng matataas na score. Pero what we have to realize is that that's just one part. Parang IQ is just one part. It's just one strength. It's not the whole strength. So, ang pinakamaganda is talagang lawakan natin yung vocabulary ng strengths for these kids para as early as kinder, as early as prep. 'Di ba? Iba yung alam nila na, okay, dito ako magaling and this is what I can use to be able to address my weaknesses. So
Yes.
that's what I'm sure parang Nikki always says that na it's really important to start with our strengths.
Yeah, so you know, Gabby, that's actually a fantastic answer. If it's hard to implement the programs that we were talking about earlier, leading with strengths is a very easy thing to implement in educational systems. So ayun, that's a great
Yes.
answer, Gabby.
Yes, this is actually a good question. No, Alma?
Very good question. Ayan.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's get the
Alam
next
mo,
top voted one.
yes, alam mo, Gabby, we were already expecting this question. Pinag-usapan namin to before our session. Like, how can I deal with companies who embrace a traditional type of culture? You can see this in a lot of older companies, very successful
Mhm.
companies. These companies that believe that there is a reason why our companies are this successful. They hold on to this so-called success formula. So, para sa kanila, hindi kami mag-a-adjust para sa iyo. Kami yung masusunod. Kaya nagiging mahirap at times, no? And I guess the only thing I can say here is sometimes the amount of effort that you have to do to make a change in organizations like that is um very like kailangan marami talagang tao ang mag-support sa iyo in order to make changes in that type of organization. But sometimes it will really go to no avail. My only advice for you is, if that is a company or organization that you could stay in, if you have different pathways, maybe other organizations can suit you better. But then we do understand that not everyone has that privilege. No, wala na, hindi naman tayo lahat pwedeng umalis lang ng job natin. So what I would like to push forward is you try to keep doing your best at your work, and then look into the measures that are already in place for you. You reach out to your HR for any concerns. You reach out to your closer supervisors that can help you, assuming that they are on your side, and then you gain support from the people around you as much as you can. How about you, Gabby?
Yes, actually, that's a good answer, Alma, di ba? Parang earlier, yun talaga yung isa na mga napag-usapan namin na this will come up, this question will come up. Na one example na nga is what we had, yung example on the government offices, they're very bureaucratic and the system is kind of in place na hindi mo siya basta-basta pwede baguhin. And of course, when we say culture, it's very ingrained in that certain company and it will really take a lot for you to change that. Hindi siya overnight mangyayari. And given that answer, I would, kung hindi ka naka-attend nung webinar ni Elijah last week, parang what we said na there, you can identify some small steps that you can take so that yung small steps na yon is what will eventually parang alam mo yun, change or start the change or shifting in mindset. So parang yung sinabi natin kanina, it's very simple, like leading with strength. Diba? It's very simple. You don't actually need hindi naman sa you don't need kasi eventually you will still need the approval of your higher up. So ilan ba ikaw, alam mo na you're good at making spreadsheets. Tapos yung company traditional culture na sinasabi mo, lahat sila nakapapel pa rin, very inefficient. So parang what you can do is to try to introduce small changes by helping them realize yung value nung, okay, bakit ba tayo mag-transition dito? Pero of course, still holding that respect. Kasi hindi rin naman natin pwedeng, alam mo yun, i-push lang ng i-push. Tayo ulit yung mababranda ng, talaga kayo, gusto nyo lang, madali palagi. Diba? Yun yung nagiging brand. Pero once we let them know the value, we also parang open up that culture of mentoring, 'di ba? Parang mag-mentor tayo dun sa older generation and the older generation will also mentor us. So maybe we can find those intersections and maybe that's one of the first steps we can do so that companies with a traditional type of culture can also start, alam mo yun, embracing these concepts that are being raised right now.
That's a very wonderful answer, Gabby. Ayan, let's ask the next one.
Do you want the next top voted on, Alma?
Yes.
Or do you...
I think we can answer that. Any suggestions? Okay. Any suggestions on how to know well our workmates so as to have a better understanding of each other aside from talking to them, especially for the close people? Okay. Nangyayari?
Alma, this is your field. This is your
Yes.
strength.
Ang para sa akin, it's actually great no that you're holding back, especially for those people that are yun nga, yung tinuturing nilang close. Not everyone is excited by social interaction. Some people just want to go home. They want that clear delineation of work and life. And then what that shows is ayoko yung kaibigan. It's good that you respect that. And I think the only thing that you could do for someone who's close is to offer them support in any other way. But yun, any suggestions on how to know well our workmates as to have a better understanding of each other aside from talking to them? One pathway you can really consider are those out of work opportunities. It can be so simple as having an exercise day, no? Di naman kailangan mag-rent ng sports stadium or anything na expensive. Wala nang additional expenses. Kahit yung simpleng pag-aya lang na mag-jogging on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning. It's not as direct as talking to them, but you're putting yourself in context with the people that you are at work with in a non-work context. And what that allows is for more true connections beyond work. And you'd be surprised that those kinds of interactions are what lead to people performing better at work or having higher productivity at work because of that further bond that they build. Ayun.
Yes, that's a good. I can see your includer strength, Alma. Really shining from what you just gave us. Tsaka alam mo, di ba? It's the little things. Minsan hindi mo napapansin na, uy, parang mahilig siya sa halaman. So, why can't I start off na yun yung pag-usapan namin? Or kung hindi man yun yung pag-usapan nyo, na like you can give that as a small token or a small gift, di ba?
That's a
So
great
that's also
strategy, Gabby,
one,
for the closed people, 'di ba? Kasi
yeah,
minsan as bad as it sounds, sometimes kailangan lang ng onti pang push, but you
push.
have to gauge if the person feels like he or she is being disrespected, then you back off. But sometimes some people just need a little bit of push. Maybe they're
Yeah.
not so closed after all. So ayun.
Yeah. So I think we can take on 2 to 3 pa, Alma.
Okay, how about you, Gabby?
Okay, let's see. Ay, parang ito. Do you want to answer this for the people who don't know?
How to make an individual development plan. Okay, well, I can answer this in a very quick way, no? But then if you're really interested in this is a very simple thing that you could actually search and find on as easy as Google Images. The simplest way that we do this is to have a goal or aspiration in mind. Let's say
Here you
let's
go.
let's give ayon. Let's give an example. I want to learn, ano yun, nakasabi dyan, gusto ko gumamit ng project management tool, specifically Google Workplace. Yung idea of individual development plans is there's 3 kinds of learning that you need to do in order to develop this skill. The first learning is formal learning, which accounts for just 10%. Yung formal learning is yung pagbasa mo or like actually literally learning what it is. For Google Workplace, it's going on Google, trying to find out how do I use this tool. Would you believe that that is only 10% of the learning that you need in order to get this? The next biggest one is peer learning, which is learning from people who already know it. For example, someone in your workplace already knows how to use Google Workplace. Sabihin ko, Kelly, patulong nga, paano ko gagamitin yan? How will I use that? That is peer learning and that accounts for 20%. So 10% of formal learning, 20% of peer learning. And last, we have experiential learning. This accounts for 70%. And I feel like a lot of older generations will relate with this. Kaya sinasabi nila, very inexperienced ang mga younger generations because we pad ourselves up with so much formal learning. We go to masters, we do a lot of certification courses. Pero sa dami ng courses na tinitake namin, medyo nakukulangan tayo sa actual work experience. So, it's true naman that the most learning that you will get is from actually experiencing it. So going back to this, the best way you can learn Google Workplace is to actually use it. Use it yourself. You try to use it every day and then go back and forth to your formal learning and your peer learning until you fully develop that skill. That's simply an example of an individual development plan. It all depends on what skill it is that you want to create. And it's a good system to keep track of your learning. So ayun.
Yeah, so you can take a screenshot so that you have an example and you have your guide questions and what do you want to learn, what resources can I access to learn more about the skill, who are the experts I can learn from or shadow, and where can I get feedback. So, di ba, naka-reflect agad dito na talagang we also need feedback. And last, where can I apply the skill that I learned? So I
Yes.
hope that helps you create your own individual development plan. So that's very related to the comment rin kanina, no, na parang may mga na-hire at hindi nila alam kung ano yung, or kulang pa sila dun sa skill na kailangan nila. So this is one good way na you as a, di ba, as a leader can help that person develop the skills that they need in the workplace.
Yes. So
Yeah, so we hope you answer that
I
question.
think we can do one last question. No? Should
Okay,
we?
sure.
I think we should we do that upvoted question, Gabby? Yung,
This one.
okay. We actually did come across this, no? And millennials and Gen Zs tend to jump from one job to the other. How can we deal with this? Do we let them go or encourage them to stay? Actually, Gabby, I want to hear your answer first on this. Or yung
This is
perspective.
one of the toughest questions because we get asked this a lot, lalo na sa mga previous webinars din. Pero siguro my personal take on this is, again, babalik tayo dun sa sinabi natin kanina. We recognize na, yes, we do indeed jump from one job to another. But we go back to ano ba yung need na tinatry i-fulfill nitong millennial or Gen Z na ito. Okay? So, when you learn more about their needs and what they want from work or what they want from life, it's from there na you can start thinking about interventions na, okay, kung ito pala yung problema niya. So, halimbawa, ako nagma-masters ako, tapos I will transfer to another job kasi kailangan ko ng part-time work. 'Di ba? So, ang magiging consideration mo dito, pag inopen ko ba yun sa'yo na yun yung need ko, can you do something about it?
Mhm.
So, di ba, some of the companies, they do allow people to take time off work or pwedeng i-manage mo yung workload niya na kahit she's on a full-time work, baka may workload siya na pwede nating i-distribute or something we can help them with. So, once you've presented all the pathways and feeling mo, hindi pala siya akma dun sa need ng tao, then maybe that's when you consider letting them go. Pero, ikaw as a mentor and as a coach, di ba? So you can always present a pathway and kung ano yung realistic pathway na pwede mong i-present sa kanya. So it's an ongoing conversation between the leader and that individual also. Na hindi ka rin pwedeng mag-decision on your own, na hindi kita papaalisin. Parang marami pa tayong pwedeng anuhin sa'yo. Pero it's for you to take into consideration na what are the needs that this person is trying to fulfill at this point of his or her life. So yeah. So what about you, Alma?
Actually, yeah, that was a great answer, Gabby. Ako, my answer for this is very short. How can we deal with this? Do we let them go or encourage them to stay? The answer can simply be, you ask them. You get to know about why they are choosing to leave. Going back to what Gabby said, if it's a certain need that you think you or your company can provide that person, then maybe you can try your hand in encouraging them to stay. If it's something na, this person is sure, I want to find growth somewhere else, is that something that you can offer your company? More often than not, that's a no. That's when you really have to let them go for their own good also, and maybe some good opportunities will come your way as well. So ayun.
Yes.
Okay,
So
Gabby, I'm
thank you.
actually so very happy. So many people are asking questions. We even have some questions in the chat box. I'm so sorry. We're actually nearing our cap off time, but again, we want to thank everyone for all the questions that were asked. Ayun.
Okay.
Ayun.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay. So before we close the program today and then we bring out the evaluation form, we just have a final note for everyone. Thanking everyone also for coming to our program. Our ending note, this is for me and Gabby, is our ending note is, it goes back to something we said earlier. I mentioned that it's not the duty of companies and organizations to adjust to the needs of the younger generations. In fact, I even mentioned that so much companies hold on to that tradition, like the processes, like
Mhm.
it makes it so that it's always the newer generations that have to adjust to this so-called formula for success. But all I want to say is, for everyone, this goes to the Gen Zs, the Ys, the X, and the baby boomers, everyone here in this call. Change is indeed inevitable. Whether we like it or not, it will come. So why not change our mindsets and look at this as an opportunity? You saw how many pathways we presented, no? Ang dami. Some of them are definitely a hassle. Some of you might even think, is this all even necessary? Well, if you want to create that ideal environment for future generations to come, then I say yes, it's a very, very good place to start. And I'd like to relate this to our positivity ripples that we mentioned at the start. Uh, Yan. A simple change can be made through ripples. So let's say the ripple we're trying to create is, in the future, we want to pave the way for multi-general organizations. One, it starts with one person. It can start with you. Any one of you guys who are attending this session today, we all know that you all have the power and capability to influence people, influence your friends, your coworkers. If you influence them about these great learnings you've made today on how to create generational organizations, you can even influence your workplace, possibly you and your group of workers. And through that, it can pave the way for our nation to have very efficient, productive, and harmonious multi-general organizations. And yan, that is our ending piece. So yeah, thank you everyone. And Gabby, I think you could uh, offer us up for next week, no?
Yes, and of course, diba, every month we offer 3 webinars. We're on our second webinar. And next Tuesday, we are going to get digital and embrace digital tools in a multi-generational workforce. So I'm so excited to have Nikki again for our public webinars, and she's going to answer these questions next week. So if you want to know more about the digital tools that we use, so dun sa mga attendees natin, alam nyo na yung ilang mga tools na ginagamit natin, di ba, Alma? So we've used
Mm-mm.
Padlet, we've used Menti, and we've used Pigeonhole. So next week, we're going to teach you how to make use of these so that you can create a very engaging multi-generational workforce.
Yes. Ayan. So for this, I want to mention, I'm gonna send something in the chat in a bit, but we're telling you that you can actually book us if you like this talk. You can book our experts. Gabby is an expert of ours. We have John and Nikki as experts. If you're interested in having a learning session for us, feel free to access the link that I will send in the chat later on for this. And you can forward us any requests that you want. So you can also follow us on Facebook. Pwede nyo lang i-search yan sa Facebook, search tab, Positive Workplaces. And isa kami sa mga makikita nyo. And feel free to follow us if you like the content that we're posting, you want to hear more about us, please, very easy lang to click that follow button. And last, you can send us an email at learn@positiveworkplaces.org if you have any training requests, webinar requests, and consultation requests. Let us know and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And lastly, our tech support page will now send in the chat box the post evaluation form so you can claim your e-certificate and worksheet. So it will be closing in 30 minutes. So please open yun na yung form as we will be closing the room in a little while. And lastly, I guess I want to say thank you again to everyone. How about you, Gab?
Yes, thank you again, everyone, and we look forward to another learning session with you next week.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for spending this afternoon with us. And I hope you all have a great day. Good afternoon, everyone.
And a happy weekend.
And happy weekend na nga pala.
Oh, and if you missed any of the parts today, you can just head on over to YouTube. We are going to upload a copy of this webinar